Do you have a box somewhere in your home that you keep telling yourself you might need one day? Maybe it is under your bed. Maybe it is inside a closet. Maybe it is in a drawer you barely open anymore. Old receipts, empty notebooks, clothes you have not worn in years, broken things you plan to fix, gifts you never liked but feel too guilty to throw away, random cables from devices you no longer own, a birthday card from someone you do not even talk to anymore. And every time you try to clean, you pick something up, look at it, pause for a second, and think, what if I need this later? What if I regret throwing this away? What if this still means something? So you put it back. Not because the object is useful. Not because it is beautiful. Not because it fits your life anymore. But because something inside you cannot let it go. And if this feels familiar, you are not just messy. You are not lazy. You are not simply bad at organizing. There may be a deeper reason why letting go of objects feels strangely emotional. Because sometimes people do not hold on to things. They hold on to safety. They hold on to memories. They hold on to versions of themselves they are afraid to lose. They hold on to proof that something happened. Proof that someone cared. Proof that they survived a time they do not know how to explain. And this is why throwing things away can feel much heavier than it looks from the outside. To someone else, it is just an old sweater. Just a paper bag. Just a cracked mug. Just a pile of things taking up space. But to you, it might feel like a tiny piece of your past. A tiny piece of someone you loved. A tiny piece of who you used to be. A tiny piece of a life that will never come back in exactly the same way. And that is where the psychology begins. People who cannot throw anything away are often not attached to the object itself. They are attached to what the object represents. A concert ticket is not just paper. It is a night when you felt alive. A shirt is not just fabric. It is a version of you who had a different body, a different dream, a different life. A gift is not just a thing. It is a connection, a memory, a symbol that someone thought of you, even if only for a moment. And sometimes, throwing the object away feels like throwing the memory away too. Even though deep down, you know memory does not live inside objects only. But emotionally, it can feel that way. Because objects are physical. You can touch them. You can see them. You can hold them when the person, the time, or the feeling is no longer there. And for people who have experienced loss, emotional instability, poverty, neglect, or sudden change, objects can become anchors. They become something that stays. When people leave, objects stay. When time passes, objects stay. When life changes too quickly, objects stay exactly where you put them. That can feel comforting. But it can also become a quiet prison. Because the more unsafe your past felt, the more your mind may try to create safety through keeping things. This is where scarcity mindset comes in. Scarcity mindset is the belief that there may never be enough. Not enough money. Not enough opportunities. Not enough support. Not enough love. Not enough chances. So when you look at an object, your brain does not just see what it is. It sees potential survival. What if I need this? What if I cannot buy it again? What if one day I regret losing it? What if this is the last one? And even if your life is more stable now, your nervous system may still be operating from an older story. A story where losing something mattered. A story where replacing things was not easy. A story where waste felt dangerous. A story where you had to hold on to whatever you had because you did not know when more would come. This is why people who grew up with financial stress often struggle to throw things away later in life. Even if they are no longer poor. Even if they can afford a replacement. Even if the item has no real use. The body remembers. The mind remembers. And the object becomes a symbol of protection. But scarcity is not always about money. Sometimes it is emotional scarcity. If love was inconsistent, you may keep every object that reminds you of being chosen. If attention was rare, you may keep every note, message, gift, or photo that proves someone saw you. If your childhood felt unstable, you may keep things because your environment was one of the few things you could control. And if you lost someone important, you may keep their belongings because throwing them away feels like losing them again. That is why decluttering can feel like grief. Because sometimes you are not just cleaning a room. You are touching old versions of your life. You are confronting time. You are facing the fact that some chapters are over. And that can hurt. A person may look at an old dress and remember who they were when they wore it. More hopeful, more confident, more loved, more innocent. They may not want the dress anymore, but they want that version of themselves back. So they keep it, not because they will wear it, but because letting it go feels like admitting, I am not that person anymore, and that is painful. People often think clutter is about having too much, but sometimes clutter is about unprocessed emotions. Every object becomes a small, unfinished conversation, a decision postponed, a goodbye delayed, a memory preserved because the heart does not know where else to put it. And over time, those unfinished goodbyes fill drawers, closets, shelves, and rooms, until your space becomes heavy. Not just physically heavy, emotionally heavy. You walk into your room and feel tired without knowing why. You open a closet and feel overwhelmed. You see piles of things and feel guilt. Guilt for keeping them. Guilt for throwing them away. Guilt for not using them. Guilt for not appreciating them. Guilt for wanting space. And that guilt is another reason people cannot let go. Especially when the object was a gift. Because throwing away a gift can feel like rejecting the person who gave it to you. Even if you do not like it. Even if you never use it. Even if it does not fit your life. There is a small voice inside that says, but they gave this to me. They spent money on this. They might be hurt if they knew. So you keep it. Not out of love, but out of obligation. And this is important to understand. Keeping something out of guilt is not the same as keeping something out of love. Love feels warm. Guilt feels heavy. Love gives meaning. Guilt creates pressure. Love allows you to remember. Guilt forces you to carry. And sometimes, people are carrying entire rooms full of guilt. There is also something called loss anxiety. Loss anxiety is the fear that if you let something go, you will lose more than the thing itself. You may lose an opportunity, a memory, part of your identity, a sense of control, a connection to the past. So your brain chooses the safer option. Keep it, because keeping feels reversible. Throwing away feels final. And for people who struggle with finality, throwing something away can feel like a small death. Once it is gone, it is gone. You cannot go back. You cannot undo the decision. You cannot recover the exact same object. And if you already have a fear of regret, this can feel unbearable. So instead of deciding, you delay. You say, I will deal with it later. I will organize it someday. I might use it eventually, but later becomes months. Months become years, and the objects stay, quietly waiting for a decision you are not emotionally ready to make. But here is the emotional twist. Sometimes, the things you keep to feel safe are the same things making you feel trapped. The clothes from your old life remind you of who you are not anymore. The broken objects remind you of tasks you never finished. The unused gifts remind you of guilt. The piles of papers remind you of mental chaos. The memory boxes remind you of people and moments you have not fully grieved. And slowly, your home stops feeling like a home. It starts feeling like a museum of unfinished emotions. A museum of maybe one day. A museum of, I cannot let this go yet. A museum of all the versions of yourself you are still trying to carry. And maybe the question is not, why can't I throw this away? Maybe the deeper question is, what am I afraid will happen if I do? Because every object you cannot release is asking something. This old sweater may be asking, are you afraid to accept that your life has changed? This broken item may be asking, are you holding on to the fantasy that you will become a person who fixes everything? This gift may be asking, are you confusing love with obligation? This childhood object may be asking, are you still trying to protect the younger version of you? This stack of unused things may be asking, do you believe there will be enough later? And when you start asking these questions, decluttering becomes less about cleaning. It becomes self-understanding. Because the goal is not to become cold. The goal is not to throw away everything meaningful. The goal is not to erase your past. The goal is to stop confusing memory with storage. You can honor a memory without keeping every object connected to it. You can love someone without keeping every gift they gave you. You can respect your past without letting it occupy all of your present. You can be grateful for what something once meant and still admit it no longer belongs in your life. Letting go does not always mean rejection. Sometimes, letting go means completion. This mattered to me. This helped me once. This belonged to a chapter of my life. And now I am allowed to release it. That sentence can be powerful. Because people who cannot throw anything away often need permission. Permission to change. Permission to outgrow. Permission to stop preparing for every possible disaster. Permission to stop carrying old guilt. Permission to make space for who they are becoming. And maybe you do not need to start with the hardest things. Do not start with the box of memories. Do not start with the belongings of someone you lost. Do not start with the object that makes your chest tighten. Start with something neutral, something broken, something expired, something duplicated, something you would not buy again today. Ask yourself, would I choose this again? Does this support my current life? Am I keeping this from love or fear? Do I feel peace when I see this, or pressure? And maybe most importantly, what would I gain by letting this go? Because we often focus on what we lose, but we forget what we gain. Space. And yes, some objects deserve to stay. Some things are sacred. Some memories are worth preserving. Some items genuinely bring comfort, beauty, or meaning. This is not about throwing everything away. This is about learning the difference between a memory and a burden, between preparation and fear, between love and guilt, between keeping something because it matters and keeping something because you are scared. Because your space is not just where you live. It is where your nervous system rests. It is where your mind breathes. It is where your present self tries to exist. And if every corner is filled with the past, the future has nowhere to enter. So maybe the next time you pick up something you cannot throw away, do not shame yourself. Pause. Look at it gently. Ask what story it is carrying. Ask what part of you is afraid. Ask whether keeping it is an act of love or a way of avoiding loss. And if you are not ready to let it go, that is okay. Awareness comes before release. But maybe one day you will hold that object and realize, I do not need this to remember. I do not need this to be safe. I do not need this to prove that my life mattered. Because your memories are not only in your things. Your life is not only in your past. And your safety does not have to come from keeping everything. Sometimes, healing begins with one small goodbye. One cleared drawer. One empty shelf. One object released with gratitude. Not because it meant nothing, but because it meant something. And now you are ready to stop carrying it. So if you have that box somewhere in your home, the one filled with maybe one day, maybe today is not the day you throw everything away. Maybe today is just the day you open it. And finally ask yourself, am I keeping this because I need it, or because I am afraid to let go? And maybe that question is where your freedom begins.